All right, in this video, I'm going to go over solving polynomials with a higher degree because you're not always going to get x squared or whatever variable squared. Sometimes it's going to be to the fourth power, to the third power, maybe even higher. The thing to keep in mind is that whatever the highest power is, that's how many answers you should expect. You should get 4 answers from solving both of these equations. So let's get started with this one on the left here. 5x to the fourth minus 80x squared. Well, GCF, right? Greatest common factor. What's the greatest common factor? Well, 5. Does 5 go into 80? Sure it does. X, yeah, x squared in common. So we can divide both of these terms by 5x squared. And we're left with x squared there minus, what is 80 divided by 5? 16. Let me just check my math here. 5 times 1 is 5 minus 3, bring down the 0. 5 times 6 is 30. So yeah, 16. That worked out nicely. Equals 0. All right. Now what do we do? Well, can we factor this again? Yes, we can. This is difference of perfect squares, isn't it? So 5x squared times x minus 4 times x plus 4 equals 0. Now I think we're ready to solve it. We've completely factored it out. We can't factor it out anymore. So we set each of the factors equal to 0. Just like we would do with a difference of perfect squares, we set each factor equal to 0. Only this time, one of those factors is 5x squared. See how we're going to end up with at least 3 answers here. So x equals 4 here, and x equals negative 4 here. Okay, that's 2. But we still need 2 more. Divide both sides by 5. Oh, that's the easiest math you're ever going to have. 0 divided by 5 is 0. X squared equals 0. Square root both sides. And when we square root both sides, we do positive negative, right? Square root of 0 is 0. So the answer is positive negative 0. When you add 0 to something, it doesn't change anything, right? When you subtract 0 from something, it doesn't change anything. So the answer is 0. But because it's positive negative, it's actually counted twice. So that accounts for all 4 of our answers. See how that happens? And of course, you probably want to go back and plug these in to make sure they work. Plug in 0. Obviously, this is, 0 to the power of anything times anything is going to be 0. Same there. So 0 minus 0 is 0. So that works. 4 and negative 4. Oof, 4 to the fourth power. Well, okay, that's a lot of math. That would be 16 times 16, right? Because 4 squared is 16. So let's do this. 36. Oh, what am I doing? 36. 0, 16, 1. Add those together, you get 196. Sounds about right. Times 5. Oh, and it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. It'll give you the same thing because it's an even number. If it was being cubed, then we would get a negative number. So the answer would be a little different. But this is basically Just checking positive 4 checks for negative 4 as well. Minus 80 times 16 equals 0, huh? Well, this was 16 times 16, right? Interesting. Minus 80 times 16. What's 80 divided by 5? 16, right? So that would be 5 times 16 times 16, which is the same thing. So you don't actually have to multiply all that out. You can just factor them and realize that you're subtracting by the same exact thing to get 0. So both of these answers check as well. Just a little trick I did. I guess I didn't have to do that. Sometimes you do extra math that you don't have to do. Important lesson. All right, let's do this one. This one, a little different. It doesn't set it equal to 0 right off the bat. Some of you might think, oh, I could divide both sides by x squared. That would make my life really easy, right? Can't do that. If you did that, you would only get 2 of the 4 expected answers, because you'd just be eliminating 2 of them right off the bat. You have to set the whole thing equal to 0 or you're going to miss out on half of the answers. So minus 3x to both sides, minus 3x squared to both sides, is what we do first. So we get 12x to the 4th minus 3x squared equals 0. Now we factor and solve. Greatest common factor, 3. 3x squared, right? So we get 4x squared minus 1. Okay. Can we factor any more than that? Nope. So we set each of the factors equal to 0 and we solve. So 3x squared equals 0. I think we can tell that that's going to be x equals 0 again. Divide by 3, get 0. Square root both sides. You get positive negative 0, which ends up counting twice. So it's 0, but twice. It's important to note that. So that accounts for 2 of our 4 answers right off the bat. 4x squared minus 1 equals 0. That's the other factor. Add 1 to both sides. 4x squared equals 1. Divide both sides by 4. X squared equals 1 over 4. Square root both sides. X equals positive negative square root of 1/4 is 1/2. So x equals 1/2 and x equals negative 1/2. And that accounts 1, 2, 3, 4. All 4 of our answers. And we can check those answers too. 0 on each side. 0. 1/2 to the 4th power. That'll be 1 over 16. So 12 times, let me just start from the beginning. Equals 3, 1/2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 is 8. Times 2 is 16. So we got 1 over 16 times 12 equals 3 times 1 over 4. 12 divided by 16. We can reduce that, right? Divide by 4. We get 4. Divided by 4. We get 3. And guess what? 3 over 4 equals 3 over 4. So that checks. And check that one. All right, one more example. X cubed this time, so we're expecting 3 answers, right? Always good to note that. Plus x squared minus 9x minus 9 equals 0. Now, let's use, since we have 4 terms already, why don't we use the grouping method? Right? We can just take these two and factor them, and take these two and factor them, and there'll be maybe a common factor between them. Yeah, looks like. Let's factor this out. So just ignore the minus 9x minus 9 for a second. Just look at the x cubed plus x squared. What's the common factor there? X squared? Yeah. X squared times x plus 1. All right, now ignore this part. What's the common factor here? The negative 9 is the common factor. And since it's negative being factored out, this becomes a positive 1 because we're dividing negative 9 divided by negative 9. It's important to note. Now, the only reason this grouping method works is because we have the same factor here. So we factor that factor out because it's, kind of distributed between these two terms here. So x plus 1 times x squared minus 9 equals 0. All right. Can we factor any more? Absolutely. Difference of perfect squares, right? X minus 3 times x plus 3. And don't forget to bring down this x plus 1. And I think we have all 3 of our answers here. X plus 1 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. There's all 3 of our answers. And we want to check them. Negative 1 cubed is negative 1. Plus negative 1 squared is positive 1. So negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative 9 times negative 1 is positive 9. Minus 9 is 0. That was easy. All right, 3. 3 cubed is 9. Plus, no, it's not 9. It's 27. Plus 3 squared is actually 9. So that's 36. Yeah, 36. Minus 3 times 9, which is 27. So we're left with 9 again. Minus 9 is 0. Negative 3. Okay, we got negative 27. Plus 9 is negative 18. Minus 9 times negative 3, so that's actually plus 27. So we're at a plus 9 minus 9 is 0 again. So all 3